name is Aubrey Conway. I'm born and raised in Sayreville, New Jersey. I live here now and I'm raising my kids here. I am a patient advocate on Breakwater's Medical Review Board. I advocate for a lot of patients in the program, specifically minors that are patients in the program, and I support their families. Thank you, Roots of Us, for being at a ton of events that a lot of advocates are at, where we are working really hard to bring more relief to more communities in New Jersey and to the patients and their families. And I really appreciate Roots of Us getting involved and documenting this journey of all the pioneers in the program and the advocates, because I know and I hope that future generations will look back at this and see who really fought the fight to bring relief to so many. So I was diagnosed with several herniations in my back and neck when I was around 20 from an accident that I was in. I suffered for a long time with pain from that, and it was not severe enough to be operable, but it caused a lot of issues for pain and travel and things like that. In between 20 and 30, I had 2 children, and that really caused an issue with my spine. And then around 30, between 28 and 30, I was diagnosed with several autoimmune diseases, which is when I really got sick. And that was the sickest I'd ever been. That was the most desperate I'd ever been. And I was on, at one point I was on more medications for the side effects of the original medications than actual medication. I was on things like methotrexate, steroids, Zofran for the nausea, really, really heavy medication. And it was just to get the inflammation down so that my blood wasn't had toxic levels of inflammation. And that's really how I came to start looking into medical marijuana. I didn't want to take the pills and the steroids anymore. And once I got into the program, once I started feeling better, I started helping out and advocating for certain families in the program. And at that point, honestly, I just saw too many things that I couldn't forget and that stay with me to this day, and things that were easily changed by either the dispensary or by going to the right people at the right level of government. And that's how I really dug my heels in and decided that I was going to advocate for these families, and I'm not going to stop until it's done. I don't like to get into the specifics for the most part, because I know that medications, I don't want to demonize medication, because that's not where we need to be. There's a place for medication in healing and healthcare and patients. It's just the kind of medications that were given out at that time that were so freely given out, like methotrexate was probably a little bit more aggressive than we needed to be at that point. Things like Humira, Enbrel, things like that, Lyrica, those things all have a place. However, they also have a long list of possible side effects and illnesses that you can create just from taking that medication. So in my case, yes, I was on Zofran, methotrexate, other steroids and anti-inflammatories, heavy doses of morphine and or oxycodone. It depended on whatever would work at the time. I was offered them, but that wasn't what I wanted to do. I didn't want to treat it that way, even as desperate as I was. I wasn't willing to risk maybe getting cancer because I was suffering from multiple autoimmune diseases and chronic pain. For the most part, I felt that almost every medication that I was prescribed in the beginning was trial and error. It was like you're giving me things like Humira, Lyrica, which were, still you see commercials on TV for them, and they have long lists of side effects. And that's what happened, is that every time they would put me on one, I would get more side effects. Like migraines would be a side effect of Lyrica for me. But I was already diagnosed with cluster headaches, which were previously referred to in the medical community as suicide headaches, because people literally would kill themselves from having a migraine for over a month. And in my opinion, that was not smart to take something that could actually give me a migraine. So Lyrica, that was a side effect. Humira, I was really nauseous all the time, and I was already on Zofran because I was so nauseous. So it just led to more nausea. So I couldn't even give it a chance to see if it fixed anything because I couldn't get past the side effects. So then I'd be put on medicine for the side effect of the medication. So I felt worse after I got on the medication. I never truly got a whole bunch of relief from any medication that I was given in that time. Well, it's funny because a patient told me the other day, they were talking to someone outside the program, and the person said, "Oh, isn't New Jersey medical marijuana the kind that doesn't have THC in it?" And that's what I thought, actually, before I knew anything about the program. That's what I had heard also, was that New Jersey had a medical marijuana program, but it was really for the dying, and you could almost no one qualified, and the marijuana had no THC in it. So I was like, I'm not really willing to just smoke something that doesn't have all of the chemicals, or not chemicals, but components in it that are medically beneficial. So I was under that belief, mistakenly, and then I had said it to someone else, and I said, "Isn't that the cannabis that doesn't have THC in it?" And they were like, "What? That's impossible. Like, how would it not have THC in it?" So then I started researching it myself, and it was actually Dominic, because his family is from Guyana, so they're super into natural remedies, and for the most part, I brush them off because I'm American and we take medicine, but I was so desperate that I just was like, fine, let's look it up. So Dominic's family's into a lot of natural remedies, and my in-laws actually had spoken to me about actually juicing the leaves, because at that point my mother-in-law was trying to juice kale for me and crazy stuff just to get it in me because I couldn't ever eat, and from the nausea from the medication. So I brushed them off and told them they were crazy, and then I researched the program myself. I spoke to my rheumatologist about it, but my rheumatologist is in Manhattan. So she was like, "I think it's a great idea, but you're in New Jersey and I'm in New York." And New York didn't even have a program at that time. So I spoke to my pain doctor about it, who was totally for it. And he said, "I'm just not participating in the program. Please find yourself a doctor that does. Get it. I think it's a great idea." So I qualified. The first doctor in the program I went to was no longer in the program. And the second doctor that I went to was like, "I can't get the card in your hand fast enough. This is what you need." And that's it. I took it from there. So Dominic's family's into a lot of natural remedies. And my in-laws actually had spoken to me about actually juicing the leaves, because at that point my mother-in-law was trying to juice kale for me and crazy stuff just to get it in me because I couldn't ever eat, and from the nausea from the medication. So I brushed them off and told them they were crazy, and then I researched the program myself. I spoke to my rheumatologist about it, but my rheumatologist is in Manhattan. So she was like, "I think it's a great idea, but you're in New Jersey and I'm in New York." And New York didn't even have a program at that time. So I spoke to my pain doctor about it, who was totally for it. And he said, "I'm just not participating in the program. Please find yourself a doctor that does. Get it. I think it's a great idea." So I qualified. The first doctor in the program I went to was no longer in the program. And the second doctor that I went to was like, "I can't get the card in your hand fast enough. This is what you need." And that's it. I took it from there. Well, I think like a lot of people when I was younger, like in college and things like that, big fan of cannabis, big fan. But again, even at that time, now that I look back on it, I was already using cannabis to medicate to make myself eat because I always had that issue of not being hungry. But even in college, like I wasn't smoking to party. I wasn't using cannabis to party and have fun. I was using cannabis to eat, and I would eat 3 times a day on it. So I was pro cannabis in a medical sense even before there was a medical program to advocate for. So I wasn't against it, but I wasn't like recreationally a big fan. Cannabis has totally turned my health around. I mean, like a complete night and day difference. I was sleeping most of the day when I was at my sickest, and I could barely get up and down the stairs. I was really miserable. I was in constant pain, but on top of that, it was just hard for me to move around at all because I was so inflamed all the time. Everything was just so swollen all the time. It was just hard for me. I felt like I was stuck inside my body. I felt like betrayed by it. And I didn't want to be that person. And then when you're in pain like that all the time, you get depressed. And then it's like, is this my path forever? And is this going to be how I'm going to parent from bed? I'm going to parent my kids that way. So when I say I was desperate before, I was really desperate. And, but then when I switched, it was like night and day. I was eating again, but I was also, you could see that I was moving around more, which helped out. And that I just got in a better mood. I started to go out more. It's like I came back alive. That's really what it was. Even if I wasn't so sick before and like dying, which like my body basically was, I was so desperate at that time that I was begging God to kill me because I was in so much pain constantly, and nobody can live that way. So now the fact that like I'm super busy all the time, I'm super involved in my kids' lives. I'm involved in everything I can be involved in my town, in my kids' schools, now in Trenton, and at huge levels that I never would have seen my life going this way. But it's hard not to talk about it when you've seen what a difference it made for me personally. When I see what kind of difference it made for me, it's hard for me to not talk to people about it and encourage them to just try it. I'm not saying pharmaceuticals are bad. There's a place for them. I still am on some pharmaceuticals, and I try to always make that clear that people need medicine sometimes too, but this is medicine also. You can use it with what you're already, working on with your doctor.